Well, welcome everyone to today's webcast. We have Scott Hendren with us today to talk about implementing model-based definition using Creo Parametric. Scott is an instructional design projects manager with RAND 3D's sister company, Ascent. And in that role, Scott is responsible for writing all of the Creo learning guides that are used in the RAND 3D Creo training classes. Scott has over 25 years of experience with PTC products and other CAD systems, so we are very pleased to have him as our presenter today. So, Scott, I will now pass things over to you.
Thank you, Corrine, and thank you for joining today. So, and just to clarify, I have over 20 years experience, not 25. I don't want to claim something I don't have. So I was asked by the sales team and the marketing team to put together a presentation today to go through our Creo 4 working with 3D annotations and model-based definition course. So what I need to do is go through the content, taking a look at the course itself. I won't be going, by page, but I'll go through the topics that we cover in that course. And then I take a look at one of the exercises that we have, and I will walk through what we cover. The exercise is from Chapter 2 in the guide. And the particular exercise is really designed to show the students kind of where they're going to go by the end of the course. So it's a completed model, and we step them through the components, essentially, of model-based definition and how we arrived at that finished model. And then I'll do a sort of a brief overview of how we can potentially customize this course and how we've done it previously, where we could make it fit within your organization to give sort of the best result for your students, if that, or for your users rather, if that's what they you feel that they would need. So originally we developed this content in Parametric 2. That was the first version of this course. It's been updated to Creo Parametric 4, which is what we're going to show today. For scheduling reasons and the changes that occurred to Creo 4, we jumped the Creo 3 version and created the update to Creo 4. The expectation is that we'll have the Creo 5 version of this course available in the new year, early in the new year. And the course itself is divided into 5 chapters. So just sort of overview, MBD, then a chapter on the Creo Parametric annotation interface, preparing the model for base definition, dimension and geometric tolerance annotations, and then a chapter on additional annotations. And the duration of this course is 8 hours. So Chapter 1, again, is an overview of MBD, so just sort of an introduction and a general overview. We have a discussion of MBD standards, sharing MBD information, and sort of how that 3D model interacts essentially with sort of the rest of the enterprise, and then some best practices. Chapter 2 is where we cover the annotation interface. So the annotation tab, annotations and annotation features and kind of how they relate to one another, combination states. We use a simple schema that we follow that includes things like naming conventions and parameters that we want to use, et cetera. And so we build the model based off of, or build our combination states based off of that schema that we've established. We have a conversation in this chapter about annotation planes and also the detail tree. Chapter 3 is preparing the model. So we look at configuration options that relate to MBD, parameters, layers, sections, and explode states. We look at the view manager and how that relates to the previous layers, sections, explode states, etc. And then creating the combination states. So putting together and selecting the appropriate layer states, sections, explode states, and so on to create the combination states that we require. We then also have the students go through and create a start part so that as they're building their models, they start from a common spot, and all of the stuff is built into that start part as much as possible. Chapter 4 is dimension geometric tolerance annotations. So we discuss semantic and presentation annotations, discuss selecting of references for your annotations, showing dimensions and creating dimensions and the pros and cons of both, datum feature symbols, geometric tolerances, and syntax checking. So, for example, in Creo 4, if you want to enter the name for a datum reference using lowercase characters, that gets flagged. You try to do it and so on. And finally, Chapter 5 is the chapter on additional annotations. So the addition of notes, editing the text within those notes, displaying whole notes parametrically, section callouts, so creating a callout for section plane, creating and placing symbols, the symbol palette, and surface finish symbols. So within the text of this course, we go through all the that are necessary to implement MBD in your organization. And so it's essentially a project-based course. So as you go through the course, you start with a model and you learn all of the various tools and arrive at the completed model. So I have a chapter exercise, Chapter 2, where you take that completed model and the student walks through all of the things that have been set up so that they know where they're going to go within the course, and then the rest of the course kind of teaches them all of the tools and techniques to get to that finished model. So I'm going to switch over to Creo. Karine, is Creo coming through okay there? Okay, everyone, sorry about that. Back to where we were. So again, this exercise is from Chapter 2, and it takes the students through the model that we've used and how we've set up our combination states and annotations within that model. So I'm basically going to walk through this the way the exercise is set up and kind of show everyone what we've set up here. So the first thing we do is show the students the first combination state, the D0 default combination state. And that combination state contains the model and a couple of notes. So when you select the first note, of course, it highlights on the screen, and you'll notice that there are a couple of text areas that highlight, and this may or may not come through particularly cleanly over the WebEx, but there are two pieces of text that highlight in gray, and that indicates that those pieces of text are actually drawn from parameters. Same thing with the second note. Again, the text that's highlighted in dark gray here comes from parameters. So to illustrate to the students where that comes from, we have them go into the parameters. And in the parameter dialog box, we see a whole bunch of parameters that have been set up in the model. And of interest in this particular case are the distribution level note, which in this case is set to C, and the completeness state note, which is set to preliminary. and then also the distribution note. And you'll notice that that distribution note is set to locked, and that's because the note itself comes from a relation that has been set up. So to illustrate, again, where that comes from, we can close this out and look at the relations. And what we've set up, and again, we have the students set this up as they go through and create their model. There's a note that first checks that distribution level note or distribution level parameter. So it looks at the parameter, checks to see if it is either A, B, or C. And if it's not, it sets the distribution note to enter distribution level parameter A, B, or C. So just a little bit of a check there for them. And then it goes in and looks at the note itself and says if it's distribution level A, then it provides this note. If it's distribution level B, it provides this note. And if it's distribution level C, it provides this note. So the intent here is to show that you may have multiple notes that you use on a common basis or a consistent basis. And rather than having to type those out all the time, you can use a combination of parameters and relations to pull those standard notes into your model. So we can cancel that out. And if we want to kind of see how this works, we can just go in and edit that parameter for the distribution note and change that to B. And we can see that the distribution note updates accordingly. So once we've take the students through this process, and again, they will actually go through and do this on their own in later exercises in the course. We just have them step through the various combination states that we've created for this model. So we have the D0 model only combination state, so that's just the model itself. We then have the D1 sitemap combination state, and that combination state just lists for us the various combination states and what is included in those combination states within the model. Again, this node is created later in the exercises. We have a D2 titles combination state, and here we basically have a title block with an image and some text. And again, this title block is actually created as a symbol. And we allow the students, again, later in the course to create this symbol. And the symbol just pulls in addition to the image, it pulls in multiple parameters using this variable text so that you can have this one symbol used multiple times and have the text vary depending on the parameters that are in your model. We have the D3 properties, which is just some outside dimensions of the geometry. D5 datums combination state, and again, all of this is created by the student inside the course. The D7 combination state, and the D7 combination states are sort of user-defined, and we just did one that shows the GTALs. That gives the students some practice at actually creating the GTALs. The D8 section combination state, so here we show a sectioned view and a note to call out the other section plane, which is section B. And a final combination state that shows section section B and the call out for the section A plane. Once the students have gone through and kind of stepped through all of these combination states that they're going to create, we also before they get further into the course, just to have them step through the annotation plane so that they have an understanding of kind of how those work. So we'll have them go through and set a couple of different annotation planes, one of which we have them set, of course, is the flat to screen option. And when we do that, we then have them create a note so that they can see what happens with those flat to screen notes. So I'll just create this note. And we have them, of course, rotate the model so that they can see that that flat to screen note just stays where it is and doesn't rotate with the model. So those are the combination states that we run through and create in the course. And we go through, of course, and create all of the annotations that are associated with this as well. This first exercise is simply an overview for them so they can see where it is they're going to go within the course itself. So switch back to PowerPoint here. Corrine, is that coming through?
Yes, you're all good, Scott.
Okay. So, you know, in addition to offering the standard off-the-shelf course, which is a good overview of MBD and how that works within Creo, we do offer a service to customize the content. So the content that we have is generic, but it is designed in a modular fashion, so we can make edits to that content and rearrange things as we need to. We've done this previously for other customers, and it was really successful for them, mostly because they were able to provide to their users their own processes and procedures, things that they want to do in-house. We used their models, so essentially taking the exercises and reworking them to suit using models that the users themselves are familiar with. And, of course, followed their standards in terms of practice and whatnot. So typically and generally when we do these custom engagements, we have the customer review our standard courseware, and we provide that with them, and we kind of sit down with the customer to determine the topics that we may want to add or remove or edit. And review the customer's model so that we understand exactly how they were created, what aspects of those models are important to them, and make sure that we can manipulate those and get them to work within the context of the courseware. We then update the content using those models and get into sort of a review cycle where we deliver the content, have it reviewed, make our revisions, and then deliver the final. And as I said, we've done that for multiple customers. Seems to be very successful. But the standard course itself is also a great introduction to model-based definition and how Creo is used to get there. So just as a quick summary, we took a look at the content that's available in the Working with 3D Annotations and Model-Based Definition course. Went through a quick demonstration of one of the exercises and had a discussion about the custom course content.